All right, thank you, everybody. Let's get started. So today, let's talk Tesla stock. What is next? What is coming? What is happening? So we've seen the stock jump up today by 10%, 9.95%. Went up by $16, it looks like. I'm sorry. Wouldn't that have been nice? I'm looking at
That's
the one.
GameStop. That's GameStop. Wrong one.
I'm looking at the 1 month view. Sorry, guys. It went as low as $142 on April 22nd. And then today it went up by 3%. So went up by $5, 177. The stock, of course, has jumped up, but then it's gone down again. There's a lot of uncertainty. Most people are believing it's because of the uncertainty with Elon Musk and his, June 13th annual shareholder meeting vote that might be happening. Same time, the uncertainty for full self-driving has dropped significantly. The confidence there is going up. So many pieces of news that keeps coming out from China specifically as well for FSD and how their different cities are approving, even a free trade zone for data. And then, there's messages from the government, different levels of government saying that they're trying to fast track FSD pilots. And we're hearing just so many bits of news directly from Elon himself about the expectations of 12.4 that's coming out, what it will have and what it won't have. So in my mind, those are the two biggest catalysts that are coming up. They're pretty important in both ways. So what would happen if in the shareholder meeting, Tesla does not get the vote that they're asking for Proposal 3, moving incorporation to Texas, and Proposal 4, re-ratifying the 2018 compensation plan? If that doesn't happen, is it possible that the reason why just a few days ago Tesla sent out a letter to all shareholders, and then they also started advertising, acknowledging that this is a required, trying to get more retail investors be aware of this vote to actually put in your vote? Is it because they're seeing signs that the vote may not go in Tesla's way, or is it possible that they're just doing that because one of the reasons why 2018 the judge was able to rescind that was because they were able to say they just said that Tesla did not do a good enough job educating and announcing the information to all shareholders. Is that what it is? So the first question is, do you guys think that these are the two biggest catalysts, either up or down? FSD, 8.8. Not that 8.8 itself, there will be any kind of stock movement. We rarely will see that. But in general, FSD kind of showing that it's on its way to actually be a full robotaxi program. And then this voting that's happening. Jeff?
Yeah, I think the key to everything is the car reliably driving itself. And I think that just unlocks, everything. And so getting past where we are on 12.3.6, getting this added functionality, getting the release to, some level of feature completeness where, you can reverse, you can do 3-point turns where you can, the car, won't get itself, put into a dead end basically. And, again, we're driving around on models that were most likely trained under some level of constrained compute, and it would be great to see how how things perform on more of an unconstrained model, which I think Elon said that they achieved, I think at some point in March or April. So I think there's a number of things, but they all to me kind of tie back to the car reliably driving itself, and it unlocks everything in terms of the value of the stock. Everything else that seems like a large issue becomes much smaller. Now, obviously, Elon and his position in the company is obviously gigantic, and extremely important. I think he is working along the line. I think he's working in good faith, and there's a tremendous amount of movement to restructure the company and get it fit for this transition. And I don't think you're doing that if you're kind of short timing it. I think you're doing that if you're committed. And I think Tesla, he's committed to Tesla. I think the shareholders need to recommit themselves back and do it in an overwhelming majority. So there's no questions coming up. So I think you can look at the vote. I think you teed it up well, Herbert. I think this communication that went out from Tesla, I think it's okay if you take either side of the argument. I think it's good hygiene for them to communicate to shareholders very clearly, this is what you're voting for, this is why you're voting, reminding them to vote. I think they would be kicking themselves if they had maybe a smaller percentage vote, in favor of Elon's compensation package than the prior round. I think they'd be kicking themselves if they didn't put these, periodic communications out. The other way to take it is that maybe they have some leading indicators that the vote isn't as strong as it needs to be. So I think it's appropriate to maybe be on either side of that or both sides of it, and just to be prudent about it. And I think both scenarios are possible. But I think in terms of unlocking the value in the company, it all comes down to, honestly, FSD. I still think they're doing things on the hardware side to solidify demand, the 0.99% financing. The people that count cars have significantly taken their Austin and Fremont numbers up on Model Y, while they're taking down China and other regions. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I think that staying above 400K in Q2 is an important kind of an important mental milestone. So that's I think that's kind of important near term. But really, if you count back, what are we, within 90 days or so of this 8.8? So I think that's key, and I think the progress we see on 12.4 and 12.5 are key.
Okay, so we're 30 days away from June 13th. So I'm going to ask you guys there's 4 scenarios, isn't there? Right? I mean, there's probably more, but let's just stick with the 4. The first scenario is the worst scenario possible, which is the June 13th vote happens and it's negative. We don't get both the proposals approved. And then we somehow, during this period of time, we also hear that FSD is delayed even further. That's like the worst scenario. There could be more. I'm just picking on these 2 examples. The second scenario could be that we get a good outcome on the vote, but then we hear bad news about FSD. The third scenario is we get a bad outcome for the vote, but we got great progress with FSD and Robotaxi in 8.8. Everybody's shocked and it's great. And then the final one is both of these things go really, really well. Okay. So let's explore what would happen if, let's start with the simple one, which is let's say on the 8.8 next month. No, sorry. March, April, May, June 13th at the annual shareholder meeting, we find out that both proposals fail. And then on 8.8, though, we're all shocked in how great the Robotaxi is. What do you think, Xander? What would happen in that scenario?
Which one? The both good or both bad? What do you say?
No. It annual shareholder meeting is bad, but then the 8.8 looks good and everybody's shocked how great the tremendous progress in Robotaxi.
If the vote is against Elon, if that's what you mean by bad, not getting comp, then I think there's a short-term price reaction. But the 8.8 part is, I think that the rational people won't bother with the shareholder vote, meaning like they won't bother paying attention to it, because the reality is, autonomy is coming. V12 is very good and evolving rapidly. So I think that the only people that are going to vote here against Elon are spiteful thieves, and I will say it. Anyone that thinks that someone's compensation that you actually hit and you've previously voted for, or even if you didn't vote at that time, but you want to try to use the current position to try to take it away. I think that's un-American, and I can't believe we're even put to it. But you know, he has to focus on you know, the direction of where the company is going, and I think that the entire board is doing that. You know, the car business is not the attractive part of the you know, of the story here. So I think the story is going to evolve. I'll leave it at that.
So do you agree with that, Jeff? Because I don't exactly believe, and I don't lean towards the idea that if the vote goes against Tesla, that, oh, we'll be fine and, you know, things will still progress. I think I think it's serious. I think it's going to definitely be an overhang for many years, for a year or longer, and people will be hard, you know, hard to try to get on board with the incredible progress that Tesla's doing, even with robotaxi. I think it could overshadow that. This is a really big deal. On the other hand, people say that regardless of what happens, even if it's a positive move or a negative move, the overhang will still be there because it still needs to, we need to get the second vote, which is the compensation plan, the incentive plan for the future. That's one that needs to happen. And that's going to take some time to get there, regardless if these two were put together. I guess I might be putting a lot of emphasis on the vote. What's your thinking about that, Jeff?
Well, Jeff, before you go, Herbert, you're in my mind, you're contradicting yourself when you say that the vote is going to go against Elon, which is what the shareholders want, which means that wouldn't that be a relief that it went against it? And now they're going to get what they wanted? I don't understand a lot.
I don't know what you mean. There's a vote. There's going to be a certain number of people is going to vote, you know, yes, and so a certain number of people will say no. And so if it happens that the no wins, what matters is our future investors. Are investors going to want to keep their money in the company and raise the stock, going up because of the excitement of where it's going, or are they going to go, oh, without an Elon there, what does this mean? What is the potential?
But that's the point. If more than 50% of people don't want to vote Elon's compensation package, then they're getting what they want. So doesn't that imply that there's going to be new money that's going to come in because they're so excited that Elon guy is getting screwed?
No, no, Xander, you just said it. Most people will say no because of spite, not because they think that the company's going to be even more successful now if we kick them out. Is that what you really think?
No, I don't see that kind of playing out the way that you do. But anyway, Jeff.
You know, it'd be interesting to know like what percent of shareholders, you know, are able to vote that were, you know, were there at the beginning of this comp plan, and what percent of shareholders are in the last 1 to 3 years. The last 1 to 3 years have been rocky, to say at a minimum. And but I mean, but if you were here at the outset of the comp plan, I mean, you know, the Uber, you know, the higher order bet is he 10x the company, him and his team under his leadership. So yeah, you know, I'm not here to, I have choice words for those voting against, but quite frankly, it is American if you are able to vote, you know, freely. So I like that. And I'm not going to chew people out for voting against it. That's what they want to do. That's what they do. I just don't understand what the alternative in their mind is. Like, do they have a CEO by name that has, you know, is the visionary, you know, is the visionary that could guide this company in a better manner? Who would have made the decision on superchargers back in 2012? Who would have made the decisions on co-opting battery manufacturing in 2015, and then building out your own battery designs? How well are that has it gone or not? Or the vision around vision based only FSD. Those things take conviction. You know, that it's just, you know, they're kind of like one-offs in the world. Like, you're not going to find that. And so my question to people that would be voting against it would be is, well, what is the alternative that you're looking for. In terms of answer your question, Herbert, what happens? It all depends. It all depends on how it's couched. I think there's a couple of scenarios out there. Like, what if the majority votes for, obviously reinstating the compensation package, but it's a meaningfully smaller vote than who did it originally? What message is that sending? I think that's one thing to think about or consider mentally. Or, and obviously if there's not a majority vote and it's not voted for it, I mean, I think that's a major problem. And then it goes back to the board, like, okay, what's the timeline? What are the next steps? What's going on with the appeal? I mean, Alexandra, I know can't speak right now, but she, of our group, has probably the best handle on all of this. But I kind of go back to, what are the alternatives that people like? You can be against something. That's how shareholder votes are. But it's almost like in your mind, like, well, then what are you for? Like, what is the alternative you're voting for? And the final thing I would say is, I comment on a number of different things, like how I see and what I think it means, and try to interpret it, either on X or in our videos. And I do it honestly, humbly. It's sometimes I disagree with the direction Tesla is going, but I'm like, okay, this is what I would do. But honestly, I don't have the information inside of the company that they have, and I would just remind everyone to be kind of mindful and just humble of, like, what you know and what you don't know. I would be 99% confident that we don't have enough information outside of the company to make meaningfully better decisions. Even if you start looking at this supercharger team and the decision, everybody's like, oh, ha, hiring back again. If you look back at how he manages, he does resource management. And there's other people besides Elon that take this approach of, basically, overcutting and then adding back. That is not an Elon only thing done in the world. That is done elsewhere. You just hear about it with Tesla and Elon because every trip to the bathroom the guy takes is reported on. But when you look at these things on the outside of the company looking in, I am super humble about it. I recommend people be super humble and just don't think that you have all the information about what really went into these decisions. And I would not say have blind faith, but I would just give them the benefit of the doubt, given where they started and how they've executed over the years.
Okay, welcome, Alexandra. You are able to join in if you can.
I'm from the car. Can you hear me from the car?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And that's why I didn't want to participate. I was worried that you wouldn't hear me well. So let me just jump in where we are with the vote and what could be the possible scenarios. We're 4 weeks in. We can all vote until June the 12th. We can also modify our votes until June the 12th. And I want to pledge again to all those that by error publish their control numbers to recheck that their votes are as they were supposed to be on June the 12th. We will hear the results on June the 13th, but I did yesterday a deep dive into Broadridge. Broadridge is that company that manages the website proxyvote.com. Sorry. And they have a second website where they pitch to the companies that want to use ProxyVote. And on that second website, it very clearly states that they are all through the period of voting informing the company on where we are. So Tesla does have insight on where the proxy votes are. And the proxy votes on proxyvote.com can be from both retail and institutional. So I think they have a good feeling on where we are with the thing. And given that they're advertising, resending letters and all that, I don't think that we are yet where they would like us to be. I think their ideal outcome is that we will be higher than 73% of 2018. I'm still quite confident that we're over 50%. In both those cases, this is not the end of the story. It is not because the compensation package from Elon will be accepted by a majority, if that is the case, that the story is over. That is just giving them a good argument in the appeals court in Delaware. That doesn't make it approved straight away. So just don't fool yourself that this is all over, a big sigh on June the 13th or 2-3 days later when they do the SEC filing, if we don't have the final count by the 13th yet. That story is over once the appeal is over in September, October 2025. So that story will go on. And so if people start thinking, oh my God, if that is bad or good or whatever, the story would be over if we don't get a majority on June 13th for this. I still don't give that scenario a high credibility, but who am I? I don't have any insights. The second point is that the more important vote for the future of Elon in Tesla is actually the one of redomesticating in Texas, because that will open up the possibility of a 2024 or 2025 new compensation plan. And that will maybe open up the route to different share classes and other things. I think the bigger failure would be if we don't get it redomesticated to Texas. That is much more consequential than the first one. I mean, I know in public perception, it is much more about, a deal is a deal and pay the man what he is due, which I completely agree with and obviously want this to pass. But the second vote on taxes is much more consequential. And the last thing I want to say is, so there is about 20% of the retail investors that currently can't vote or think they can't vote. They're still trying everything they can for the next 4 weeks, but it doesn't look good. To those people, I would like to say, if you can move your shares, given the current share price, probably at a loss, so without a tax event, if you can move your shares to a broker that allows you to vote, please consider doing so. You may not obviously be able to vote in the next 4 weeks, but there are many consequential votes coming up. We may have a second shareholder meeting this year. We will for sure have a very important one next year. So I just, 20% of retail is about 10% of all outstanding votes. Do the math. The second thing you have to know is once you vote, your vote is actually more consequential than just what you think your share count is, because once this is counted, it is divided by the number of all shares voted, not by all shares outstanding. So your shares actually get a superpower because not everybody is voting. So just to all those that currently can't vote, please look into moving your shares. We have a lot of, under the hashtag voted Tesla24, we have a lot of information which brokers and banks overseas allow to vote in a very simple manner. So this is not over yet. In any way, it's not over yet. Just want to make sure June 13th is not a make and break moment. The make and break moment is going to be much later. The only obviously huge disappointment would be is if we don't get a majority on Texas and on the compensation plan, because that would probably make the appeal useless for the compensation plan, and not moving to Texas would have many more consequences in 2025 than we all anticipate now.
Okay. Got to think this through, because what you're saying is even if it's approved, both proposals are approved on June 13th, it doesn't mean that it's over. Okay, I got that part. But then if it's not good, and it's more likely that, well, that particular bid is over. But I guess what I'm just trying to figure out is if this overhang on this Tesla stock, is it going to continue for a long time, and what would happen?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, and I'm sorry to say so. I mean, the overhang. This is not a 4-week overhang. This is overhang for quite a while. Now, again, the best scenario is that Texas passes. That's the most important thing to watch. Obviously, it would be perfect that the best case scenario would be more than 73% of those that are eligible to vote on this subject, meaning not including Elon and Kimball, for the compensation package, and more than 50% plus one vote for Texas. That would be the ideal scenario. And I actually do believe that most people vote the same way on both those questions, meaning those that are favorable to all this will follow the board on both those questions, and that those that have a grief with Elon and beef with Elon at the moment probably say no to both those questions. So the best case scenario is that if we get to Texas, I think that will most probably pass. I mean, there will be people in Delaware trying to inject that they shouldn't move, but there have been a couple of moves lately. TripAdvisor was one, and I think Spotify was one. And in the end, they won. So we're starting to have precedents of companies that tried to move out of Delaware, that got opposition and won in the end. So I'm quite confident that the move out of Delaware to Texas, if we get 50% plus one vote, is then consumed, and then we can build something much bigger on that. If we don't get the compensation plan through below 50%, that is then the end of that compensation plan. But if we got Texas through, there may then be quickly a new compensation plan. You see that they all depend on each other, and the compensation mental milestone we should get to is 73%, so that it really shows in that appeal. Look, even now, with all things on the table and all the current shareholders, there's even more support for this compensation plan. So that would be a very strong argument to go into the appeal. But if that appeal doesn't happen, I don't think that's the end of Elon. The end of Elon would be if we can't move to Texas, and there wouldn't be new compensation plans following that one.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you then, Alexandra, what's the likelihood that institutional investors would actually split their vote? They'll say no to the ratification of 2018, but they'll say, sure, go ahead and move to Texas. The reason is that they go, well, as a shareholder, it's not to my benefit to let them dilute me and, let's start fresh. But would they split it, or they would not, right? They would either say both no, or they will say yes.
Yeah, well, they could. I mean, I have no crystal ball what they will do. What I did do the last couple of weeks is go through all the old votings of the Vanguards and the Fidelities and so on. And in 95% of the cases, they all voted always with the board. So that gives me a lot of reassurance. We already heard that 4 of the big 20 have given their support to Tesla, and I promise you the board and probably even Elon are very busy talking to these big firms, making sure they have them in line. Now, does that mean they will vote or not? I don't know. So one thing we have to keep an eye on, about 2 weeks prior to the shareholder meeting, say by end of May, 28th, probably something like that, we will hear from the proxy advisory firms, ISS, Glasshouse, and all those things. So those we have to keep an eye on, because lots of smaller fund managers never even look into voting. They give annual mandates to these people, and then they never even open the voting papers anymore, and then these proxy advisors vote for them. So that's not true for BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Fidelity, and all those. And into all these big ones I've looked into, and I'm feeling quite confident. Again, I have no idea what will happen, but from the research I could do, and I pushed it as far as I could, the big ones I'm not worried about. I'm worried about the mass, which is, I think we have 3,500 institutionals, right? So what I could look at was the top 10 and not the 3,340 others. And I don't know how many of those, but certainly a large majority of those, yet small, but in its voting power altogether quite big. They usually go with these proxy advisory firms, and the proxy advisory firms about 2 weeks prior will publish a press release. So we'll have that via Reuters and whatever else, telling us how they vote on each point. So that's about 2 weeks prior to June 13th.
Wow. Okay, thank you, Alexandra. That was brilliant. So that explains a little bit more. So you said you're very confident that we'll pass the 50%, but the goal is to pass 70+%. Obviously, as you said, you don't know what's going to happen, but so we're still very much in sitting here. But and then the other question is that would Elon leave? I'm going to read his transcript of what he actually said on Q1 when he was asked about the importance of getting that 25% voting control, so that he's concerned about the AI. And he said this, well, I think no matter what, Tesla will solve autonomy. Even if I get kidnapped by aliens tomorrow, Tesla will solve autonomy, maybe a little slower, but it would solve autonomy for vehicles at least. Okay, so he's confirmed that that's going to happen. I don't know if we would win with respect to Optimus or with respect to future products, but if there's enough momentum for Tesla to solve autonomy, even if I disappeared for vehicles, okay? Yes, there's a whole range of things we can do in the future beyond that. I don't know if he's referring there to the products or to what would he, if he doesn't win the 25%. I'll be more reticent with respect to Optimus. If we have a super sentient humanoid robot that can follow you indoors and that you can escape, we're talking Terminator level risk. And yes, I'd be uncomfortable with if there's not some meaningful level of influence over how that is deployed. So he's reiterating his importance that he needs to get to 25%. And then he goes, and their shareholders have an opportunity to ratify or re-ratify the sort of compensation, because I can't, and then he goes, oh, but I can't say that, but that is a fact. They have an opportunity, and yes, we'll see. And then he says, if the company generates a lot of positive cash flow, we could obviously buy back shares. So in a way, he's saying, okay, yeah, we're going to succeed with autonomy, that's for sure. Not sure what's going to happen with the other products. Yes, I am going to be uncomfortable. I do want my 25%. But then he threw in this idea that, well, if we generate a lot of positive cash flow, we could obviously buy back shares as one option of getting him the 25%. So, yeah, when you heard that, do you guys feel comfortable that, he's basically saying there's other plan Bs. That's his plan B of what would happen.
Yeah, I jump on this quickly because I have to get out in 3 minutes to my appointment. But for me, it's clear that Elon always thinks in at least 3 to 5 year horizons. So what happened the last 3-5 years is a preparation of what's happening here. And actually the comp plan of 2018 was supposed to give him all this money and all these shares in 2028. So it's always, long horizons. It's not a months to months thinking, it's multiple years. And he set up XAI, and we completely understand the reason, because lots of the good intelligent people coming to XAI wouldn't have gone to Tesla. Tesla is too big of a ship for them already. They want one of these startups where they have, the blood in the game and the possibility to 100x or 1000x if it all works, and they are working their butts off for that goal. But obviously XAI is also a hedge for Elon. So connecting the dots, well, like a lot, and I know you had on your show a couple of times, Herbert, he did a deep dive into what happened to Ford 100 years ago. That could very well be the case, that Elon would disappear, work on XAI, Tesla stock would go down, he would then purchase that back. Don't forget his other big worth is in SpaceX, and SpaceX, we're hearing more and more rumors that they will go public in the next 24 months. So if you look at the bigger picture of it, he may consider the risk of temporarily not being part of Tesla. I mean, I hope not, I pray not, but it's one of the scenarios that he's certainly thought through. And I mean, all I can do and all we can do is just make sure we mobilize enough for this vote, for this not to have to become necessary, and just, remain focused on the little we can do to ensure that the vote goes as well and organized and informed. And I mean, I can't tell anybody what to vote, but I can help them to make sure they can vote. And so that was my mission the last couple of weeks, and I'll continue doing that until June 13th. And we should all, help anybody we have, or if you have kids that have Tesla, or family or friends that don't know about voting, please do. But again, I do believe that a couple of scenarios are possible for Elon and are prepared, but he would prefer clearly to stay with Tesla, and our duty is to help to make that possible.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Really appreciate that. I know you're traveling, but we really needed to hear what you said. That really gives us a lot of information. So let's review what's been happening. At the end of the day, can anybody say that in the last month or two, Elon has not been all in Tesla? He's come in and almost every single day has tweeted something out about FSD or about robots or what he obviously reorganization of the company. Just most recently, he liked or he said something. Oh yeah, he replied to somebody's tweet about what Netflix. When they tried to spin off Quickster, which is their DVD program, trying to switch over to streaming, and everybody screamed at how dumb that was. And then he said, well, apply that logic to Tesla. Clearly, what he's doing now in the last month is making Tesla move away from a auto company into an autonomous company, right? And a robotic AI company. And you can see the movement that he's making there. I mean, it's wonderful what we're seeing. So he's skin in the game. And the skeptics out there are saying, well, the reason he's doing that is because he needs to win their votes. It's just crazy that they would even have that
Yeah,
thought.
but he stated that how many years ago that Tesla is all in on autonomy. That's they're gonna drive. What was that, like 4 quarters ago or something like that, when he said he's willing to take margins down to zero and they're gonna make it all up on FSD. Like, this is not news, and it's erroneous to make that kind of claim.
Yeah, but we see him very focused, and yet it's ironic that here we are just at the doorstep of seeing FSC succeed, and we have this thing hanging over our heads of is Elon committed or not committed? Is he going to stay in the company or not stay in the company? But all right, so we covered the worst case scenario is obviously both of these events not going in our direction. But there's also a very high likelihood, according to, that most of us are listening here, believe that it's actually going to go in our way, that the vote will go at least over 50%, that that FSD and 8.8 it's going to be amazing. We're going to be shown the robotaxi future. And it's not just Elon, right? We're hearing from quite a number of the engineers and people that worked at Tesla and AI that they're very confident that this is going to happen and we're heading in that direction. What will happen? 8.8, or so next month, June 13th, we get the vote. And then 8.8, we see something interesting. And then past that, shortly after that, we start seeing that the plans for robotaxi is happening. Like I said earlier in the lead up here, there was at least about 4 things that happened in China just the last couple of days. I just did a show on it that shows that China is moving forward with welcoming FSD. And in fact, they have a region near Shanghai that's called a free trade zone that's now piloting data transfer, allowing foreign companies to transfer certain data that they approve of to go outside of the country. So, there's all sorts of things that are happening that seem to be in favor of Tesla and robotaxi of Tesla. Yeah, you want to jump in, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think there's a number of things going on that are, you can say as bullish and constructive, or that could be not constructive and risky. There's been you look at the layoffs, I keep going back to that, and you are going to lose some good people in layoffs. Tesla has a pretty high bar. I think some people saying like the percentage of resumes that come in versus people hired is like more difficult to get into than an Ivy League school. And a lot of these people are pretty good, but Tesla, it's one of those things where sometimes you overhire in certain areas, or sometimes business conditions dictate that you've got to shift. And Tesla clearly has to move OpEx and capital dollars to autonomy. So, I mean, but we are seeing, they're called regrettable losses. if you're bullish on Tesla, that's great. You can be bullish, but you also have to be balanced in that there's been some good people that have left as well, and but it's not all bad either. And it's in some of these articles that are literally sensationalizing every single manager that leaves Tesla. I don't view that as extremely helpful. I think they're writing these articles mostly for clicks, and some of it's newsworthy, but you can't paint all of it as like everybody's leaving Tesla. They've seen something, because if you rewind back to 2019, you had arguably the second in command of the company and co-founder JB Straubel. He left, and people have reasons for leaving. So I just wanted to put that out there. There's some regrettable losses for sure, and I think Tesla is getting incredibly fit on the OpEx side. I mean, this number could be well north of $1.5 billion or $2 billion on the OpEx side. I don't think people have any idea what how much it costs for talent. For example, in the Bay Area, it is extremely expensive. I'm not saying you're not getting great people that were dedicated to the company and you wish them well. You do, but it's very expensive to have to have people in the U.S., especially in higher cost areas of the country. And again, not saying they're not worth it, but it's just a fact. So I think, Herbert, you're right. I think there's a number of constructive things happening. There's also a number of things that I think people would consider to be risky or not good. So anytime you're doing this, I would say this level of management change and reduction in staff, you are going to lose some good people. So Tesla's definitely got to go through this period and kind of stabilize themselves. But it's pretty clear that there's a plan, there's direction, and there's conviction, in the plan. And that's what you want to see. You wouldn't want to see just kind of, here's what you wouldn't want to see. You wouldn't want to see us go into Q2 earnings or come out of Q2 earnings, and there's not really answers on what's happening on OpEx. There's not really answers what's happening on gross margins. There weren't efforts or attempts to drive demand, and the company's just full on investing in autonomy. I don't think that's the greatest answer in the world. I think you would want to see the company again trying to get fit on the OpEx side, trying to generate demand, and looking at the bottlenecks that drive demand generation, like this financing piece. And I think these are some really, I'm actually super bullish on what Tesla is doing in terms of this direction on OpEx and the direction that they're doing with the financing. I like it, and of course, I mean the whole overlay is what's happening with autonomy, and this 12.4 release could be any day now, and I think that's going to be a meaningful milestone in terms of what models was that trained on. Was it unconstrained? What new features are added? Is this the full-on summon where you stand and you can summon your car to where you're standing and it works reliably? So these are some pretty exciting. These could be viral moments too for the company. And so, yeah, I think in terms of catalysts or things coming up, you've got the expansion of FSD in China and the rest of the world. I think those are huge milestones, and then just the performance and capability of FSD is another big milestone. I think there was a rumor today that parts were spotted for Model Y Juniper in Shanghai. Who knows what that means? That could be at any level or stage of development. But yeah, so I think there's a number of things that are cooking, and Tesla realizes, hey, look, we probably need more models in an interim fashion sooner. Take COGS down more rapidly, and to pull forward some of these features from the 25K car. I'm really excited about that. To me, they've completely de-risked, not completely de-risked, but they've majorly de-risked Unboxed by pulling some of those modules forward, getting them to scale. They not only de-risked a lot of many portions of the ramp, but they accelerated the 25K car getting to its cost structure, getting to its target cost structure. They accelerated it by pulling those modules forward and doing them in an earlier vehicle, because now those are going to be at scale, both from a volume and a cost structure perspective when the 25K car starts. So anyway, I think there's a number of things both on the positive and more not positive side, I would say, but I think the positives are
Yeah,
outweighing.
you've actually been saying this for a while, right? You were kind of concerned that you didn't like the idea of a new product on a new factory. This is the idea that they were going to do, a new kind of low affordable car, brand new vehicle they've never made before, but they're going to do it in a brand new factory that they haven't, built before. So everything we heard now is actually right in line with that. You've been warning about that for a while, so it's all looking good. De-risk is what you said, yeah.
Yeah, and that would just think about opening Mexico, a mega factory bigger than Austin, Fremont, and then either not being able to fill it, and not only not being able to fill it, but having a product that's running at a low efficiency, which is the brand new unboxed model. That would have been disastrous from a cost perspective. That would have been a major burn. And I think Elon is looking at the series of choices on capital investment and saying, "Hey, look, this isn't as much about getting walls constructed and ceilings and multiple floors and factory expansion. We actually have to do network infrastructure expansion for autonomy. Like that's going to actually yield more margin and more dollars sooner than we may still eventually be doing the factory expansion, but these dollars have to go into autonomy first." And I like that move, because there are things that Tesla can do without building more factories to get more output out of their existing lines and factories. And that was the move that they did. That's the play they're running on these interim vehicle spins prior to the low cost platform. That's exactly what they're doing. So those vehicles they'll run faster down the manufacturing line. They'll be lower cost, and they'll be able to take existing capex and then stretch out its use in time. So they'll be more fully depreciated and just a lower cost structure. And instead of bringing everything up new capex, new factory, low efficiency. So I really like the moves they're making.
Jeff, so Elon used to tweet and earnings calls mention that he wants Powell to lower rates, and so is that possibly why the Mexico factory was kind of put on ice and just or is it just wouldn't have that cost structure in place yet to get a meaningful below Model 3?
I said this earlier today. It's a great question, Xander. I think there's a play being run that's connected to politics a little bit, and it makes sense for Tesla economically, regardless. Like I said, opening up that brand new factory, new product, when I would say Austin is not fully utilized, and Fremont is, but actually, there's some parts of it that aren't. Like, for example, the Model 3, which I just think it would have been. It would have not been a good move for Tesla. They would have had a cash burn for something that was yielding no output for them, no meaningful output for them, and it would have been like the worst of all worlds. Could have used that money for autonomy. But I also think there's a political play being run. So right now, every GM and Ford you see driving around in the U.S., 1 in 3 of those are made in Mexico, maybe Canada, but mostly Mexico. And so this move on tariffs today, which we didn't get into yet, they're already talking about the next move, which is, what do you do with Chinese and Korean sub-assemblies that come into or are set up for fab in Mexico, and then final assembly in Mexico, then back up to the US via NAFTA? What do you do with those? Because the labor cost structure between, you know, Mexico and most parts of Asia are a lot closer than Mexico to the U.S. or Asia to the U.S. So a China or Korean car company that isn't highly automated, like for example BYD, has a shot at setting up manufacturing in Mexico and achieving similar, not as good, but really good cost structures. And then you're making it up on the outbound export side. You're making up ground there, and they would just be able to shuttle cars into the U.S. So there could be a political move coming where that is stopped, and either there's a, maybe it's not 100% tariff, but maybe there's a 20%, or they go in and they renegotiate that trade agreement with Mexico, where look, we just can't, you know, fill up Mexico with car plants and then, you know, bring everything up to the U.S. There's a structural. This is where tariffs come from, and tariffs are like an emotional topic for people. I don't know why, but they are. But this is where tariffs come from. Tariffs come from a structural inefficiency or deficiency between two entities, and then you've got to figure out like what's fair. And you know, when China didn't have a car industry, they certainly didn't have an EV industry, but they had demand for EVs. There was a 25% tariff on a Tesla being built in the US and sent over to China. The reciprocal tariff from China to the US was only 2.5%. A lot of people don't know that. And in 2018, the US responded with the reciprocal tariff on that. So that was a long answer, Xander, but I think the short answer is I think Mexico is going to become a little bit of a political football too. And I don't know if Tesla's just going to be able to build down there and export vehicles up to the US freely. I don't know if that's going to be the case. In fact, I would say there's more of a chance of there being resistance and noise on that than it just, you know, being, you know, no issue and they can do it to their heart's content.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. So it's been a little bit kind of gloomy, right? Because we're thinking about what could happen, the negatives. And I think many of us Tesla bulls, you know, we're with a little bit of PTSD here. We're concerned about what we've seen in the last several years. But if you pause and think about it, and I do sometimes, and I'm looking at the world and what's happening with Tesla and its place in it, we're at the precipice of incredible growth and incredible opportunity. We're seeing the growth of AGI or AI, and the Tesla is actually part of that. If they were behind, if they didn't even have a leg in the game, was that the right term? You know, in playing the game, because they are second in compute. Now we just heard that Dojo is in production. They've been creating a real world AI that with incredible inference chips. They've got all the pieces that he's been planning for years, and now it's coming into place. And so, yes, we could have lost way more of the best minds to have jumped ship, but they've got arguably the best humanoid bot program that's out there. Even the other, you know, CEOs of other bot programs can't get themselves to say that they're going to beat Tesla. It's going to be hard because, again, manufacturing and real world AI and just the progress that they've made to show that they're there. You know, the combination of all the products that they have, right, comes together to really hit the major markets. Why, you know, in this, my point is that, you know, we are probably at the best scenario we've ever been, where everything has lined up perfectly for an incredible future. And then we're seeing FSD actually physically in front of our eyes. We're seeing it now. Many of us were beta testers for several years over this, and we knew that it's going to be a long ways. Now we're seeing the end game. We can see it actually solving the remaining edge cases, and for it to be a true robotaxi solution. You know what I'm saying, guys? Are you following me? And you know, nobody's gonna laugh at you anymore if you say robotaxi's coming, like they used to. Just 6 months ago, people would laugh at me when I said robots are real, and then demo drop, and people are realizing, oh my God, these bots are developing fast, they're moving fast, they can learn fast, they can, they can actually do useful work. So everything's, coming along nicely. So I know we're very careful. We don't want to get too bullish, but I don't know. Just want to know a little bit there.
Yeah. If I were the other bot companies, I would look at what Tesla is doing in terms of what markets they're going after and what use cases they're solving for. And for my first release, I would get the hell out of the way of what Tesla is doing. And I would try to pivot. I would try to do something that fits a completely different vertical. Because imagine being the figure robot, no disrespect, to him or that team, but just the position they're in. Imagine being the figure robot CEO and sitting across from, a major aluminum company or steel company, or they're going to have to use a third-party assembler unless they're getting funding to do their own factory. But regardless, any partner, any supplier, you're sitting across the table from them. You have zero volume, and you have, I would say, you're fairly light on credibility, and then you've got the CEO of Tesla, who has an auto division, an energy division that have $100+ billion of revenue, massive scale, massive volume per model scale, not just scale across 1,000 different models. They've got really concentrated volume and scale. Tesla's, they're just in they're in a position where they're going to be tough to beat on the cost side. So someone's going to have to approach what they're doing on bots, and they're going to. If I were them, I would pivot and attack a vertical that just Tesla's not going after. That's their only chance, and then maybe Tesla acquires with them, or they develop a partnership with them, or something happens. I know we're not trying to go too deep in the bots, but just Tesla's advantage on the manufacturing side, I think is not well understood by many. But a lot of these companies honestly don't have the leverage or scale, or quite frankly, the capability. Even after Tesla has lost, some of these people, their depth of expertise is it's going to be hard to match.
So interviewed 1X Technologies, Bornick, and what he said was, they're going straight to the consumer. And he says that, if you think about it, and in that interview, he explained a lot about what would it take to actually have a consumer robot. And so he's completely doing something that he believes is the opposite of what others are doing, including Tesla, going straight to consumer. It needs to be 60 pounds or less. It needs to be, not have hard actuators, metal actuators. It's going to have tendons. It's gonna be just the little things he said, like moving the elbow to close the cupboard. He's really studied what it's like to be somebody that's going to be helping in the home. And then this new company that you posted up there, the Kyle Voigt, who's previously with Cruise, and then he formed the company, right, with Parallel Jane, with Tesla's AI team that built the neural net for AI. They're going after the home. And I don't think they're doing humanoid. They're doing, robots that can do household tasks. So that is interesting. But at the end of the day, Tesla's humanoid bot, right, now moving to 22 degrees of freedom on the hands, that is a signal. That's a signal that, my gosh, they are going to make this robot be able to do anything with the hands, right? Hold a drill, sew a needle, Elon was saying, right? I want my bot to sew a needle. If it can sew a needle, it can do anything.
Herbert,
Yeah.
there's a bit of breaking news. Ilya Sutskever is leaving OpenAI.
Ooh, is he going to Tesla? Why would he leave? I guess this battle against Sam Altman was continuing, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't say where he's going. I'm sure him and Elon are pretty close.
Yeah, Elon was the one that recruited Ilya to OpenAI when they first founded it.
Yeah, so that's breaking news in like the last minute. Sam Altman just posted it. So also very relevant in the
Well, the meme the last few days is where's Ilya, right? Can you ask ChatGPT for, oh, where's Ilya? Now we know he's leaving. Okay. Oh my God, the advancements in AI in the last several days, the last several months has just been crazy. And the good news again is that, Tesla's not left in the dust, right? They have XAI. They're trying to show that they're going to be the competitive. And then Elon is promising, did he not say, I don't know how many days, in 49 days, they're going to launch a new version of Grok and it's going to be better than ChatGPT? And I don't know. That's what he said, right? So.
Yeah. I would remind people too, like, again, I was being a bit constructive there earlier, but a year from now, so let's say, May 14th, 2025, where do you think Tesla is going to be on autonomy? And where do you think the competition is going to be, whether it's a Ford, a GM, a BMW, Mercedes, or a BYD, or you name it? And do you even think that they're nowhere. I mean, they're nowhere right now. And if you look at their robo-taxi services, their ability to scale is going to be a function of capital investment because they have a very expensive robo-taxi that they would need to scale. This is going to be a function, and this isn't the greatest time in terms of acquiring capital or financing capital. So anyway, I just remind people to just think just 1 year from now, because markets look out at least 6 to 12 months. Sometimes they're not very good at it, by the way, but just there's a lot going on now. We're kind of thinking of June 13th vote. We're thinking of 8.8 robotaxi reveal. We're thinking about this quarter and financing rates and lease rate. But just where do you think Tesla is going to be a year from now? A year from now, these new models should be in production as well. Probably a refreshed Model Y, and then these new lower cost models. You'd have to think that we would be an unsupervised full self-driving and some level of robo-taxi service available on those vehicles, whether the real robo-taxi is not going to be available. So just try to remind people just the rate. It seems like we went a couple years of just FSD 10, FSD 11, and kind of just on Model Y, no new models. Now you have a new Cybertruck, you've got a new Model 3 refresh, you have these new models coming, and then you've got this move on V12, and just it seems like the pace of innovation's really picked up. And sometimes I think to myself, I just look at the calendar and say, well, where do I think Tesla's going to be a year from now? It's pretty stunning, what's possible.
Well, then why were you talking about cars and Model Ys and all that? A year from now, that will be like the third priority, the fourth priority, the fifth.
Yeah, I agree.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.